I want to say thank you to those that are watching, those that are listening, whatever way you are consuming the content. We appreciate you. We hope by the end of this, you can get some value out of this that you could take that'll push your journey forward. So I am here with some really, really cool guy right now, as well as my co-host, who's absolutely amazing. My name is Corey Ochai. This is Thoughtful Discussions, and I am here with
Josh Snyder.
Absolutely.
And you're listening to the Thoughtful Discussions podcast, like Corey mentioned, and the 1028 podcast.
Absolutely.
We're here at the 1028 studios.
Yes.
And, first, thanks so much for listening, tuning in. And it's been wonderful to have this podcast be something that I'm able to do. So I'm very thankful for that. And I actually have a returning guest. If you go back into probably like in the 30s of episodes, I think we're in the high 70s now, you will see or hear an episode with Todd and I. So we dipped in and talked a little bit about DJing kind of back in the day, the Bloomfield Bridge Tavern, right? That was like a big thing. And then, kind of developing from there. So please, after you're done listening to this episode, go check that one out so that you can kind of get a feel for the difference between then, which was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and maybe even more than that.
Yeah. I feel like I need to go back and listen to it as well because I don't exactly remember. I mean, I remember the general topics, but
yeah. So the gist of the podcast is to get an understanding of like who it is that we are interviewing. I have a belief that you could have 100 bakeries all on one street, and they would all be different. They'd have different recipes. They'd have different hours. They'd have different reasons that they do what they do or where they learned what they learned. And so discovering the inner workings of them is kind of what the idea of this podcast is about, where and then Corey and I kind of get to chime in with our own experiences and ideas in between. So that's right. The goal of this. So without further ado, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Todd. I also go by Keebs. I do a bunch of different stuff. I'm, I'd say, audio and electrical engineer by trade.
Yeah.
And I DJ and I throw events. Which
is how I met you originally. Yeah.
Well, probably just through music, I would assume.
Yeah.
And then I also do like lasers, do some projection stuff, work on houses.
Monster Jam,
yeah. Wing competitions. Well, not competitions.
Did you just say Monster Jam?
Yeah, Monster
he
Jam,
puts together like how many people were at the most?
196, I think.
196 people, one group.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about that. Because they're just letting me in on the secret, guys. As you can hear, they already have a rapport. This is my first time meeting
Todd Keebs,
right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to go with Keebs. I like that.
Yeah,
Keebs. So this is my first time meeting Todd. So I am very interested and very curious in some of the things that you do.
I guarantee you, I mean, this is Pittsburgh, so that's how it goes. But a lot of the people that are in his circle are probably in your circle too,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
Which is a beautiful sign. That's
right.
actually it, man.
Right.
Because they say birds of the same feather flock together. So,
that's right.
It's great to meet you, and probably the first time, not the last time. That's what I'm liking about this.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So Todd, what is since you got? I'm very curious. So what is it that you do, my friend?
I guess it depends what context. What context you want to hear about?
I think he means professionally.
Oh, professionally. Okay,
Yeah.
So I am a audio systems engineer for Meta, for the kind of what they call the Reality Labs research. So we basically are a research division for the virtual reality, augmented reality type of stuff that's going on in the future. So kind of related to Oculus, but
Absolutely.
All that.
Okay, that's very interesting. That's very you know, it's making a lot of headlines right now. Is you know, augmented reality. I think even there's one of your competitors, Apple just came out with some glasses that'll be doing the same thing. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities in that. And so I guess you get a chance to play around with some of the things that they're going to be that's going to be in the market soon.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Create some things that are in the market.
You create them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so what we're doing is our specific office, we work on what we're calling codec avatars, and that is basically a photorealistic representation of you in virtual reality. So the idea being that, you know, like now you go into what they call like VR chat or some things like that, where you know, you go in and you have like a little cartoony avatar, and you know. That's what people see you as.
Right.
But the idea here is that if you're making a virtual reality kind of call to somebody, right, or you're talking to somebody in virtual reality, you don't want that sort of, you know, cartoony thing. You want it to look like you.
Absolutely.
Especially with augmented reality, where in the future, where you might be wearing glasses, and you know, if we're sitting here and we have a fourth person sitting with us, we don't want it to look like we're real and there's a fake person there, right?
Yeah. And for those listening, can you explain the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality?
Yeah.
Just to make sure that they kind of get an understanding of both sides, you know?
Yeah, so virtual reality would be where you would have a screen where you can't see anything else that's going on around you. You know, you see what you see is entirely virtual. So maybe you're in space on a spaceship or something like that. Whereas augmented reality would be you see the real world, and then there's things that are added to it or augmented to it. So you see reality, and then you have virtual things that are added to it. So in this case, we might be having this conversation in the same room, but maybe somebody from across the country is sitting here across the table with us, and
then on camera, no matter where the camera is, they're planted in a spot, and they are augmented into the video feed.
If the camera sees it that way as well, but we would actually see it. So
if we had goggles on.
Yeah, we'd be wearing like augmented reality goggles or glasses. I mean, the ultimate vision is glasses.
So when I think of augmented reality, the first thing I think of was our first representation of it was Pokemon Go. You know what I mean? Something of that nature, right? Where you can actually see the world, but you see the things inside of it. Where virtual reality is when it's kind of captured 360. You know, all around you, right? You look left, you look right. You're in a different planet, you're a different world. Right, so that's really interesting, man. And how did you get into that? You know?
Yeah. So I worked for before I got out of college, and then once I got out of college, I worked for a startup company called Acoustica, which made MEMS microphones. So MEMS microphones are essentially microphones that are made out of computer chips. Similar technology to computer chips. And so those microphones are what we have in our cell phones, laptops, you know, anything like that. Pretty much anything that's small today, except for the kind of microphones we're using. It's gonna be a MEMS microphone. So I was with that company for a long time, like 15, maybe 16 years. We started as a startup from Carnegie Mellon, like a spin-off kind of thing, and then we got purchased by Bosch. And then Bosch shut us down after 8 years because we still weren't making money.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, we were making money. Shouldn't put it that way. We weren't profitable.
I got you. It's like we're tired of this R&D branch of, you know, I mean, but no, it's okay though. I mean, I bet you there was a lot of work that you guys put in that is into a lot of things that we're doing now. You know, a lot of research, and sometimes that's what it's about. It's not even about being profitable. It's about learning and developing the technology, in which I bet you that's what you guys were doing.
Yeah. I mean, we had some of the first digital microphones in laptops, I think, in the world. So digital mics is pretty common for MEMS mics these days, where, you know, rather than having an analog signal come out of the microphone, it's digital straight out of the microphone. And the microphone's, you know, like 4 millimeters by 3 millimeters by 1 millimeter, so very small.
Goodness
and
gracious.
digital comes right out of it, you know, so you don't have to worry about interference. You don't have to worry about a lot of stuff like that. So yeah.
With this type of microphone, there's an actual, I don't know the word to call it, membrane that vibrates, and then the computer is taking that electronic signal and turning it into sound.
Well, that's right? The same thing is still happening in ours, and in the MEMS microphones, actually. There still is a membrane in there. It's just that membrane is like, you know, 0.5 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter rather than an inch by an inch. And then all that digitization is happening on the microphone itself. So
Got it.
that A to D process is brought into the microphone so that it isn't done then by the computer or, whatever we're recording this on, for example.
You know, Todd, I want to go back a little bit. Okay? I want to go before college. I want to go, what type of child were you, my friend? You know, what were you into when you were younger?
Well, I mean, I'd say, what was I? I rollerbladed when I was like, that was kind of like the first big thing I'd say I was like into, in terms of like something that I took on my own, like I played trombone and I played a few other instruments like that before, but like then I started rollerblading when I was like, 10, something like that. And I was on ramps and on a demo team and stuff like that. And then, I stopped doing that. And then in high school was when I started DJing. So I was probably around 15 or 16 then.
Okay.
What high school?
Shenley High School.
Okay.
Shenley. Yeah. Ooh, you were playing them jams, my guy. you weren't just playing around.
What year did you graduate?
You was getting funky with it.
I graduated in 99.
Oh, you were really getting funky with it.
I did one year. I did bring my turntable setup to the high school talent show. And,
nice.
and
slip mats and all.
Yep. Yeah, had it set up with scratching and stuff in front of the whole school. So that was pretty cool. But
starting at a young age, your parents were pretty, progressive, like kind of supportive.
No.
Okay.
No.
They didn't hate it.
They weren't too happy about it. I mean, the thing is, the reason we got into that is from going to raves.
Okay.
So we were going to raves, which, I actually, ironically, my dad asked me, when I was young. Again, I was probably 15, and he saw a flyer for a rave somewhere, and he picked it up, and he was like, yeah, do you want to go to this? And I was like,
not with you.
Yeah, I was like, well, no, but meanwhile, me and my friends were already planning on going to that rave and sneaking out of the house. So we were like, no, we don't want to go, and then we snuck out and went to it. And then the next week there was another one. It's at the Irish Center down in in Squirrel Hill between. So I grew up in Regent Square.
Okay,
so
I got you.
We'd stay at my friend's house in Squirrel Hill and just walk down the road to
Absolutely.
the Irish Center. Then there was one the next week, and so we were like, hey, I think I want to go to that one, and we'd go, and they'd make us come home at like 2, So I mean that's when the rave's just getting started.
Right.
Truthfully. So, oh my goodness! In the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. So they, that was where the interest came, and obviously my parents weren't going to be too thrilled about that because they know there's drugs going on there, and it goes all night, So they weren't too thrilled about it, but they also were like, okay, we'll let them go until a reasonable hour, and come pick us up, and so
I got you.
we weren't going too crazy.
Got you.
So when the DJing came after that, they were, they weren't against it, but they. Also would have rather I put my efforts in other ways, but looking back, it was the right thing.
So what was your goal back then? What did you want to be when you grew up back then? What was the dream that you had? Because I know it probably wasn't going to college at that time. If you were DJing, or you always thought you were going to be in this field.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I wasn't going into DJing thinking it would be my career.
Okay.
And I still don't. I mean, I like to keep it. I kind of like to keep it separate. That way, it's like
still fun.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it as the fun thing, and then I do my job for my job. And I mean, I like my job too, but it's it's different. But so, yeah, I mean, I actually at that time I didn't even know really what I wanted to do. I just I knew kind of the things that I liked. I knew that I liked audio. I liked computers.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom actually, she used to volunteer at the school, and she put together like a career center. And she's crazy. She volunteered all throughout. She would just go in and spend all this time. I mean, there was like a room. She convinced them to let her like have this room, and she got all the material in there. Made a little library of like career books, and people would come in, and she'd be like, ask them about stuff and say, oh, well, maybe you want to do this, maybe you want to do this.
Gotcha.
And so, one time, when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do, I didn't really know. And she was like, looking at it, she's like, oh, I see this thing, audio engineering, that seems to be things that I would like. And she was like, what do you think about this? And I was like, yep, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And so
Beautiful. You get a chance to learn about the equipment that you're using, maybe even how to build it. You probably heard about a lot of things that they're working on or used some of that equipment too.
Yeah,
That's a go-to for me. I would have cashed in on that.
yeah.
For sure.
And there's a lot of different. I think that I didn't realize before that, neither did she, was that there's like a lot of different ways you can kind of go into that field. Like audio with technical stuff. And so when I was like applying to schools, some programs that would call themselves audio engineering would be in like the music program, right?
Okay.
Or like a recording engineer, right? That's what a lot of people think of as an audio engineer. But then there was, programs in physics departments where you'd be really learning about the actual acoustics. And then there'd be programs in, electrical. And so I did apply for a couple that were music programs, but I would have had to be. So I played trombone like that whole time, and I would have had to be a trombone, a trombone major essentially, and take like orchestra and take band. And I was like, it's not really a music I'm into. Like, I don't want to spend all this time on that. And trombone was cool, but it wasn't really like my passion.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, so when the physics side of it is cool, but it wasn't really like wasn't that into acoustics. So when like the electrical engineering kind of program, she told me about that. That was kind of really sparked my interest, and so that's kind of what I ended up doing. Where it's like you're really learning how the things work, right? I mean, how do you build the audio equipment that other people are going to use?
That's interesting, man. That is interesting.
Yeah.
Corey's rethinking his whole childhood.
Wow. Wow. That's deep, man. So, okay. All right. So you kind of have an idea what you want to go for. You're testing out all these things. You're learning about these things. You're learning that, okay, that when they say audio engineer here, that's pretty much just me going forward with this orchestra thing. That's not my style. It's not what I want to do. So how did you choose?
Yeah, I mean, I think I basically just thought about, what's going to give me like a career that will, that'll, I guess, get me the ultimate kind of fulfillment that I want, and where, being in a studio, I guess like that would be really cool. But I think from a long-term stability standpoint, my thinking was, well, I can really like build things with an electrical background. I can have more of an engineering kind of career as opposed to, being necessarily like in a studio, or, in the physics side of it is a little bit like too far kind of on the nerdy,
Got you.
academic side. So like the electrical was kind of just right in that middle ground where, I'd be able to get a good job and work in a variety of different areas, but also do the things that I like.
Still like so throughout this whole time, were you still playing that funky music, my guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that never stopped. The
No.
DJ had never stopped.
Yeah.
Let's tap into that. That's what I want to tap into.
Yeah.
I want to see
Right.
how
No, it's great.
how did that DJ career go, man? How did that end up transferring all the way through college, even throughout college?
Yeah, I mean it was interesting because I started here, like I said, when I was like 15 or 16, and it was me and my best friend Frankie, and we basically our thinking was kind of at the time, all right, our hook, and I mean we didn't even call it a hook at the time, but our kind of our catch, right, would be that we were two young DJs DJing together, because other than that, back then it was always kind of just one person up there playing.
Elaborate playing together. How many
Yeah.
turntables did you have?
Yeah, so we would use 3 turntables and then 2 mixers. So like nowadays a lot of people will have 3 or 4 CD decks nowadays, but we use turntables obviously because that's what everybody
Like
used
with
then.
real vinyl on it.
Yeah. So we would normally a DJ setup would have the 2 turntables and the mixer. So we would show up with a 3rd turntable and a 2nd mixer, and we would plug that into the other mixer, and then we would be able to. So that way, like one person would be DJing, the other person could still be getting the record.
That blew
queued
their
up.
mind. Y'all blew their mind. They was like, "What the hell is going?" No, we got
So it
two
was two
DJs.
guys, three,
Yeah.
and then you had one, and you both shared one, and you each had one, and you kind of shared.
Yeah,
kinda
we'd
went back
kind of move back and forth. You know,
Yeah.
Oh,
depending on the
y'all
mixer
were
setup, but
doing mystical things up there in that DJ booth to
Well, I
the
mean,
average person.
Yeah, and, I
Especially
mean, you know, we were doing a little bit of scratching and stuff, but it was more the real advantage for us was that like it gives us more time. You know, like
Yeah.
especially with vinyl, where you really need to, you want to have things lined up, and you don't have the ability to jump back and forth a lot.
Right.
So by us having a whole extra song of time, more or less, you know, one person's there. So as soon as the one record's done mixing, the other person's, you know, ready to go.
Y'all are dirty for that.
But then you're figuring it out,
Yeah.
and you're kind of on the fly. It's not like you
That
have a
was
set
beautiful.
list, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you guys play.
That
but
was beautiful.
You're figuring it out, and
Yeah.
oh, I want to play this, and
Right.
and you have to know your stuff because back then you had to land it. You had to land the needle right where you knew the song was about.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's some work.
that's some real work, man. That's it's really interesting though that third turntable actually gave you more time, and you got two minds as well going at once. So
Yeah.
But then the spectacle from the audience
that-
it
perspective.
looks
Yeah.
phenomenal,
Yeah.
right?
And we were, you know, high school kids where everybody else was, you know,
Yeah.
college or later, right? So
Yeah.
that was kind of the like, oh, they're so young too. That's cool, you know. So
Gonna bring in the new flavor, like so maybe
Yeah.
some things that everybody maybe want to be hip. Oh, that's genius. That's genius.
Yeah.
All right, man. So I mean, I've gotten off a good bit of questions, man. I don't know, like
So who would be some of your influences or like favorite artists growing up, but also what Pittsburgh like DJs and artists have you like kind of were you looking up to at the time when you were first starting out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, probably like Diesel Boy was, you know, he was kind of the big drum and bass DJ from Pittsburgh, you know, at the time. And also Sign, who was a, you know, a local DJ from back then, and 187, who he did like a live PA, kind of sort of like an actual live performance, not even DJing, which especially back then was even more difficult.
what's the difference?
I mean, so with DJing, you're just basically playing a pre-made track that, you know, somebody else has already made it's pressed to vinyl, whereas with what they call a live PA. I mean, nowadays they don't call it a live PA, but back then that's what they called it. Where it means you're setting up all your actual synthesizers, your samplers, and
Yeah.
you're triggering things live, adding effects
Oh
live.
wow! It's almost
So
the
like
same.
looping.
Yeah, so it's like almost the same thing you would be doing in your bedroom, getting prepped for. It's almost freestyling.
Kind of freestyle, but yeah, freestyling the you know, writing the music. So and he would have, you know, drum pads, and he'd be triggering stuff, you know, live and stuff like that. So
Oh, that sounds
was-
amazing.
yeah, it was dope. And there was a night called Steel City Jungle back then. That was sort of the you know, the home of jungle and drum and bass, I guess, as it was coming around back then. So yeah, I mean, the local wise, a lot of the Steel City Jungle crew and this guy named Bricks, Alaska, you know, they all had the Steel City Jungle back at Laga, back when Laga
Yeah.
was a thing.
I've heard of Laga, man.
Yeah, I know.
I heard some stories about that. Yeah. All right, that's really interesting. So all right, so you got your influence. You're still DJing. You're in college. You're doing your thing. You know, what was the college journey? You know, how did that treat you? What were some things that you may have? What was one of the top things that you learned in your college journey? You know, if you can pick it
Yeah.
one thing.
I mean, so you know, so I went to, you know, school in Pittsburgh. I went to Frick for middle school, and then Shenley, like we said, for high school. And then when it was time to go to college, I went to Miami.
Oh, you're a smart man.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Miami, I'm not a big fan of Miami.
I don't
MU?
think I knew that.
The U. You were at the U.
Yeah, the U. And I was at the U when, like, it was going down there. I mean, it was.
I know.
I was there three out of the 4 years I was there. They, you know, the football. They were number one in football, but I didn't care about football.
Yeah.
But the after parties.
Yeah. Did you meet The Rock?
I don't know if he was. I think he was there. I don't know when he was there in relation.
I think 96 is probably when around his
I feel
time.
like he was there a little earlier.
Yeah.
But it, yeah, I wasn't that into it, mainly because I got there the first day, and like all these kids are like, yeah, UM, and they called it UM back then. Nobody even called it the U.
Yeah.
And I don't know, all these people were just super into that, and like I saw them arrive as freshmen, like they weren't from Miami, and all of a sudden they're just like cheering for this thing, and I'm like,
they're following the hype.
Yeah.
They don't have any skin in the game yet to be that much in love. I got you.
So that kind of turned me off to it, and but I don't know. Miami was an interesting place.
Got you.
I'll tell you that. I mean,
it
was, because I went, when I was in Pittsburgh, right? I was young and I knew everybody that was there. That was in the scene in Pittsburgh. It was not that big. I was DJing all sorts of places, and I get down there and I was like, cool, I'm gonna start DJing down here, and it doesn't really work quite like that. You know what I mean? Like it's like I hit people up like, yeah, I'm a DJ from Pittsburgh, and like, nah, nobody
cool,
really cares.
Yeah, gotcha.
And which is good to gain perspective, right?
Yeah,
like
and I mean, and I played some weird shows the first couple years for sure. One time I think somebody I met through like a message board online or something. I went out and played their like kind of house party, but it was like a trailer in like a trailer park in like the Florida swamp kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like,
you was in the swamp?
Yeah,
the real swamp though.
Yeah. This kid picked me up, like his mom picked me up, and I brought the turntables out there, and like there was definitely some talk of like the mom sleeping with some of his friends, and like
big yikes.
Yeah, it was.
That sounds like Miami. My brother used to live in Opelika, so I got you.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. I get where you're coming from. I know the vibe. I know the smell of that place. But I really wanted to. So how long did you stay out there? And no, let me go here. Right, because when it comes to comedians, right. They say some of the best lessons they've learned is from when they bombed. They go to an area they don't know, and they completely hit the mark. They don't hit the mark, right? When they're coming with their stuff.
Yeah.
Did that happen to you down there?
Yeah.
Did they get you? Did they get your craft?
Well, so I mean, what ended up happening is like basically the first 2 years I was down there, I didn't really do that much DJing. I mean, I did some, but not a ton. And then there was a show that was Friday nights, that radio show on the campus, radio station. And the guy who ran it before me, like they would kind of hand it down from person to person. And that, he liked the kind of similar stuff that I did. He was a guy. He called himself Egg Foo Young back then.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
But nowadays you might not call him. I mean, he was an Asian guy, but still. But he, so he kind of recognized that I was on the same kind of like wavelength, and so he passed this show down to me, and it was like a Friday night show that was from 10 to 1, I think, and it was, it was like kind of, it'd been going on for a long time, so it had a good following. So then I took that over, and that sort of definitely helped establish me with the local DJs even more. And I knew the people back before that, but that definitely got me more into into the culture overall. And so I would have that, and I would be able to bring in guest DJs. And a lot of times if like a say a big DJ came to town that was similar, that fit in style wise, I would talk to the promoter and say, hey, they want to come down to the show. So they'd come to the show, they'd play the show. They'd play my radio show before their actual thing. I'd give them some promo. I'd exchange some tickets, get on the guest list, stuff like that.
I got you. Everybody listening already thinks you're cool, my guy. This is real great stuff. They should make a movie of this. I'm not going to lie to you. Dude, how does that turn into what you're doing now? Like, how, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. That's a great start to life right there. Like DJing in Miami. I mean, raves. Mom had to come pick you up at 2:00 in the morning.
Radio.
My guy. This is a rock star lifestyle right here. For real.
Were you, at any point, did you doubt that you'd come back to Pittsburgh?
I didn't really have a plan to come back to Pittsburgh per se, but basically between my junior and senior year, I was looking for something to do, right? And there was a startup company that was just kind of getting started, and my mom was on a mailing list. I think it might still exist, like the Pittsburgh Tech Council or something like that. And there was, an article in there about a startup company that was, getting spun off by CMU, or some people that, at that time it wasn't even a company. They were getting money, right? And so I kind of hit them up, and I had just coffee with, with one of the founders, and it was him, and he was the CEO, and there was the CTO, who was basically the tech guy from Carnegie Mellon.
Okay.
And so they were, fundraising. They were trying to get money to put this together. And so coffee, and he kind of said, hey, this was winter break before my junior year was over. And he said, we're trying to get some money together. And if we do, I'd like to hire you as an intern. And I was like, cool. So got word from him a couple months later. They got some money from investors, and so then I worked as an intern over that junior to senior year. Then I did consulting during my senior year, and then they offered me a job. So, I had a job lined up, before my last semester even started, which was great.
Which was absolutely amazing. So what were you doing as an intern?
Intern, I was kind of doing anything. At that time. It was like, research into kind of what else is out there in the market, anywhere from stuff like that to like market research to, putting together a shelving unit because we're moving into an office building,
Gotcha.
We're soldering some, little components, as needed. It's kind of a lot of different stuff. And then when I actually started, it was still a little bit of that as a startup company, it's like nobody's, you might have a specific role, but everybody's going to do a little
whatever
bit
it takes. Yeah.
So it was it was a struggle for a while, and like I said, it was like 8 years as a startup, where we had just investors, giving us money, hoping that we would, either get sold or whatever else, and then it got a little dicey. We got sued by another company for some, patent infringement stuff that was totally bullshit.
Just a kind of a dirty business trick to kind of get you guys out of there.
Exactly.
Money wise.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary time, but for you to stay 8 years, it can't just be the work. There had to be a dope culture, my guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was cool. It was definitely, I'd say what would probably wrap me up the most in it. The people that were there were good, and I'd say there was a good culture, but I'd say more than anything, just the sort of goal of, or the, having the vision of like, this is the first time somebody's done this, right? We want to do it and want to be successful. You know what I mean? Like just doing it was cool, but like I said, like we're always trying to hit that, actually making, being profitable, because there's so much, So like I said before, MEMS microphones are made from, essentially computer chips, so they go through, you've got to make a silicon wafer, and you go through all these processing steps, and all of that stuff is all, economy of scale. So like you got to make tons of it to get the price low enough.
What year was this?
So I started there, I guess that would have been like 2002.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I was there for about 16 years total.
Okay, because this is right after the dot-com bubble, right? So this is the dot-com bust, you know what I mean? So that, and then you said 2002, so it kind of, the market became less saturated because there was less people around probably. But you guys still believed in the importance of what was going on beforehand?
Yeah, I think the dot-com bust was, a lot of that was more like websites that were blowing up, and then they had the crash.
Tech was still tech.
Yeah, exactly.
But when did the iPhone come out? I don't even know.
iPhone came out probably like 2005 maybe.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, you were
Something like
close.
that.
You were close.
Yeah.
You still had the Palm Pilot
Yeah.
things with the pineapples and stuff, or
Yeah.
was that what you guys were working off of?
I had a sidekick at
The
one point,
sidekick was
I
it,
loved
man. I mean, you were living. It was like you either had a Lamborghini or a sidekick to get the women. You know what I'm saying? Back then, that's where it was at. That was really big.
Yes, I think the sidekick came out. I want to say like
that's when
2002.
Yeah, Soldier Boy was around. With
Yeah.
oh gosh, I don't even know why I brought him into this podcast, guys. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
He pops his head in everywhere.
Yeah, he did. He was the first like internet rapper though. MySpace and everything and YouTube. It was, oh man, that was a time.
Yeah.
That was a time, man. And it's so great to hear about your time in that time. So, got the startup. You guys are chugging away. You got companies coming after you. They only coming after you when they know you're good, you're a threat. So obviously you guys were dope. But what happened once you guys IPO'd,
Yeah, I mean, so we didn't end up. So I think IPO is right when you go essentially you go public, right? What we ended up doing was investors stopped wanting to give us money.
Okay,
right.
It's like
so
you have enough.
So we eventually kind of went up for sale.
All right.
And I mean, I guess you're always for sale, right? But whether or not you're kind of pushing for it or not. And there was all sorts of drama involved in the background of with the your share prices, because even as a startup you have options, so when I signed up, they gave me all these options that are you can execute at 5 cents or something like that. And the idea is that when it gets sold, that stock option that I can buy for 5 cents is now worth 100, and I make tons of money, right? And but it didn't really go down like that.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's just
Yeah, because we got to that point where let's say the investors give you $10 million, right, and you burn through that because we have to pay these large manufacturing companies to make the stuff for us that we then sell for a fraction of that. So every time we're selling a microphone, we're losing money. But we need to sell more microphones in order to make money. So, we get to this point where it's just, the people on the board and whatever just kind of realize that it's not sustainable, so they need to sell us. And how much the stock is worth at the time, there's like fighting in the back about that. There was a whole thing where the CFO at the time stabbed the CEO in the back and got him fired for they were trying to say that he was trying to keep the stock too low because the lower it stays, the more the value stays in. A bunch of stuff like that. I'm not an expert in it by any means.
Sounds about like the stuff that usually be going on around that time. Right. No, yeah.
So things got a little desperate, and that started happening, and then we got to the point where they were going to sell us. They almost sold us to our competitor for for nothing. That would have been terrible. But they ended up selling us to Bosch. And Bosch, is they're like a 260,000 person worldwide company that makes everything and anything. And when they bought us though, they bought us for I don't remember exactly what it was, but let's say that over the course of that first 8 years, the investors put in $50 million.
Right.
When we got sold for like $4 million.
Oh,
so that means
that's a big loss.
So that means that all those investors, that put that money in, basically they get their money out first before anybody in the company that has our options, our stock options.
Right, which was the kill pill.
Yeah.
That was the thing that that means it was nothing. It was, if it was worth 5 cents, it was worth 0.001 point of a cent at that time.
Right. So so but I mean it was fine because like I said, I really wasn't in it I wasn't in it to make money. I mean, really, it's a job, right? I was making money, so I was happy about that. I wasn't trying to make a fortune off it. I mean, it'd be cool if that happened, right? Obviously, I'm not going to complain, but that wasn't my objective. So, but what was cool though was that Bosch is a big company and was trying to.
You can still see it live.
Yeah, they wanted us to succeed, right? And we had a chance to succeed.
Congratulations to you, my friend. That I'm gonna say congratulations for that whole process because. I can tell by the way you're talking. If it was about the money, you would have never went as far as you went, regardless, because it had to be bigger than yourself. You wanted to see something that you believe was superior to what was in the market come to play. And you didn't matter how it happened, you were going for it, you're going with it. That says a lot about you, not just who you are, but a lot about your character. You know what I'm saying? And that's dope. And if it feels like if the culture represents the way you're approaching this, that had to be a pretty cool ass place to work in. Dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You probably still have friends that you talk to still to this day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man.
And
That's actually a winner story right there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and after that, I mean, there was still, you know, we were with Bosch. Bosch let us roll for 8 years. You know, trying to get to that point where we were, you know, finally profitable. And like, you know, I always say that when they did eventually shut us down, we were selling 30 million microphones a year, and that was not enough to make money.
Okay.
So we needed to, like, we were in all like Bose headphones. We were in all the Microsoft Surface products. We were in, you know, tons of Dell laptops and tons of other laptops. But we needed to sell like 100 million in order to actually be profitable.
Got you.
So, you know,
Uber still hasn't turned a profit, my guy.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So maybe they just weren't hip to know that, like, you know, the tech companies have to go a lot longer but when they get there, then we get to the Apple, you get to the $1 trillion companies once they get there, but you have to have an appetite for risk, and as well as understand the process, which it was too early to even understand that's actually the right route to go.
Yeah.
You know, just R&D this thing until you get it to a point where it's undeniable and everybody needs it because the work's in. That's interesting, dude.
Yeah, and I mean, and like, you know, like you said there,
that's
you know,
interesting.
If we would have got one of our microphones into, you know, an Apple product,
A cell phone?
then we essentially would have immediately had enough volume to make it. You know, like we went through a whole thing with them where, you know, you know, the wire, back when they had wired headphones, you know, you know, you had the wired headphones with the little up and down button, right? There's a microphone inside of there.
Right.
And we had prototypes of, you know, of those with our microphones. We were working with them to try and get in there. And, you know, we were really close, and we were basically about to go into it, and then it failed due to some weird test that they had in Europe, where you had if a cell phone is plugged into a power outlet, you know, like you're charging the phone.
Yeah.
In Europe, there's a standard that says you cannot have so much audio interference in the headphones. Otherwise, you know, it fails their tests, and you can't do it. So our microphone, for whatever reason, it was just an electrical interference thing. It happened to, you know, just the way it was constructed. I mean, we tried to figure out what it was, and we never really could. It just happened to pick up this one frequency that made it fail this test, and then we got, you know, kicked out of the platform, and we never went in. You know,
goodness gracious, that's cutthroat.
That's
cutthroat.
You got to get there to learn that, though.
Yeah, and we had to, you know, just even in order to be considered for the product, we had to go through all these extra steps because it's Apple. You know, like where we had to put our devices through all sorts of reliability tests, and they had to be doing that. You know, every time we built, let's say, 1 million mics, right, we'd have to take 10,000 of them and put them through these tests every single time, and we'd have to do that continuously, and they had all these standards for us. So we spent, like you're saying, a ton of money just trying to get in there.
But the badge that you would have just going that far into one of their tests, I just feel like even just having that badge, the next person, their competitor, is say, give me that. I'll take that. You know what I mean? I would say that. If I was the CEO of that, I let them put the money in to do the work. And once they say no, you come right over here. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
you know,
but you can't tell people that because Apple will then sue you. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's a non-compete as well too. So probably there's some type of stuff. It's Apple, right? Exactly. They've thought of it all. Oh, you can't sell it. Okay, you might have to. Oh, there's no way. There's no way. If you fail the test, you're dead. In the water.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's definitely, you know, there have been companies that have sued them for that, where, you know, they'll just push you so far, and then when they don't, you know, people invest so much money trying to get in, And if you don't get in, then companies will just go bust.
Think about it. That's a competitive edge for them. Oh, we'll let them think they're going to
Exactly.
work for us. And then once they get so far, we'll tell them no. And then they can't even use it. And we still have all the information from all the tech. If we switch a few things around, we can figure out something that works. That is horrible. Yeah. That's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, at least from what I saw, it wasn't malicious. You know, it wasn't. I wouldn't say that they were, they weren't trying to steal anything, but it's more just, they know that they can be essentially the bully, right? They know they can say, we want you to do this, and everybody's like, oh, you want us to do what? Sure, we'll do it. Yeah, whatever we got to do, we'll do it.
Gotcha.
And then when you don't, they're like, oh, sorry,
But you know what? Shout out to the journey. Shout out to Apple as well. I mean, them guys have also obviously changed the world. They know what they're doing, and it's really cool to hear. Just this so far, this part of your story. And I think we probably indulged a lot on this, just the journey. We probably should get to, the part where, now you're working with Meta and everything of that nature. And this is kind of how all that started, huh?
Yeah, I mean, so they, like I said, they shut us down. Boss shut us down, and then we and I mean, they were cool about that too. Honestly, they kind of tried to take care of us as best they could. They told us as far ahead of time as they could, and then my plan was to just renovate a house for a while.
That's what you said. You were working on houses as well. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
So whenever that happened, I bought it like an old house that needed a ton of work, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to do this and see what happens next.
Yeah.
And I did that and for a little while, and then somebody who the boyfriend of the sister of somebody I worked with at the other company.
What? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. Just go.
Hit me up and was like, as at Meta, and was like, hey, we're looking for somebody who knows about these kind of microphones. And I was like, oh, I'm that guy,
Yeah.
And because, when I was with the last company, I was the person who would do a lot of the characterization of the microphone. So like we'd get a new product from, the research team, and I would kind of put it through the paces and do all the testing of it, check out, how well it performed in relation to other people's mics and, the standards and things like that. So, so I would do a lot of that kind of detailed testing, as well as helping customers put our microphones into their products.
Okay.
So, when Meta needed somebody that with experience in that area, then it just happened to be around.
So now have the tables turned, and now you're the one that's taking other people's mics.
Exactly.
Like, is this going to fit our test or not?
Exactly. Which was real fun because I got there, and one of the first things I was going to do is to check out what microphones are on the market. 'Cause it'd been like about 2 years at that point since I'd been looking at other people's mics, and so now I was like, oh, now I can actually call up the competition. All these people who were fighting for my position before, now I can call them up and be like, oh, well, what do you think? What about this? And I'd bring something up, and they'd be like,
pass my test.
Yeah.
You remember me?
Yeah.
No, but I think that's great, and you know what? That's part of the process, man. That's all part of the process to get to that position. You gotta go through the fire, man. You gotta go through the fire, and then when you get that position, it becomes more like sustainable because you really understand the terrain, because you've been through it.
Right.
It's not like seeing it from a distance or, looking at it from afar, like, I was in this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're battlefield tested.
Exactly.
You got the position.
Yeah. Yeah. So and we're doing real cool stuff there, in terms of things that nobody's done before. And
that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool to be a part of it. One of the things that we do to kind of make these, virtual avatars, right, is somebody sits down inside of a large dome of cameras, right, and there's 300 some cameras around them filming them, super high quality, super, high speed, and you go through a number of prompts where they say, look happy, right, look sad, things like that, and it, the cameras pick up your facial expressions and see, how that relates, basically put it into machine learning algorithms, and then make it so that when you put a headset on and it sees your face from kind of weird angles, it's able to reproduce that in virtual reality. And so that's kind of the visual side of it, right? And where I come in is the opposite of that, is the audio side. So similar to how you want to, reproduce a person visually inside of a virtual reality, you also want to reproduce somebody from an audio perspective.
Right, the sound and so forth, and capturing all that.
Yeah, people hate hearing themselves after the fact.
Right.
So, like, you need to make sure that it's going to hopefully represent how they hear themselves.
Looking at that, and also looking at that from afar, right? You like the visual part. I and me not having any background in any of this, right? Thinking about the visual part in augmented reality, yeah, of course, that's going to be difficult, right? But when it comes to audio, if I pick up a phone and you pick up a phone in Ireland, right, you still sound the same, right? So what would be the challenges that you're facing that you wouldn't face from the technology we already have now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, I think, is the fact that, so let's say, like you're saying, you call somebody up and they are in Ireland, right? But as soon as they pick up, you're like, oh, are you in the bathroom? Because what that sounds like, right? You know what the environment sounds like.
Yeah, you can hear the echoes off the wall from the closed space.
Exactly.
I had somebody call me the other day, and I was like, yo, you in the shit, aren't you?
Yeah.
He was like, man, how'd you know? I was like, I can hear the echoes, bro, and the bloop bloop. I heard that. No, just kidding. Let's go for it.
But if you were going to FaceTime somebody or you have video, obviously you'd be like, okay, yeah. I can see you're in there, right? But a lot of, but from an audio you can too, because and so a lot of people, I think it's easy to not realize that those things. So I think a lot of the audio things are more subconscious than it is visually.
Okay.
So it's very easy to look at something and be like, okay, I know that person's in the bathroom, right? But if you hear it, you might not be able to think about it right now, and your average person might not be able to think about, okay, that's what it sounds like.
There's a fan going on, and it sounds kind of echoey.
Yeah. But if you hear it, you're gonna know, So I think that kind of subconscious perception of audio makes it a real interesting problem, and it's also,
And the way that you guys want to use this is in more of an everyday type situation, so that when you are in an office with noise and it's still going to be something that you can adapt to and use. You have to figure out what all you need to adapt around to cancel out.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because again, like we were saying before, if we have the three of us are sitting here and there's a fourth person here in our augmented reality, right? And we want it to look like they're sitting in front of us. That's fairly easy, right? You take them and you cut out the background. I mean, there's a bunch of difficulties.
I get what you're saying.
But then
taking out the background noise, that's a whole nother element.
Right. Ooh. And if you saw them sitting there, but then it sounded like they were on a shitter, that's weird, right? I mean, so you don't want that. So you need to make it, look and sound like they are in the right environment. And, if it's all virtual reality, it's almost a little bit easier then, because then you can, then you don't have to meld two realities.
Actual reality is always what they say. It's actual life is stranger than fiction, right? So it's like there's endless possibilities of things that can go wrong, and trying to diminish it as much as possible, because obviously there's going to be something 20 or 30 years from now that can do just a little bit more, but there's never no variable that can't mess up the process or mess up what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so, imagine it's like super loud, right? They're on a bus or something. Or just like before, where people were outside talking there, a few minutes ago. Ideally, you wouldn't want that in there. How do you cancel that out, remove that? And then there's also, the kind of more base problem is even just localization. So there's a lot of things with just how you hear things between your two ears. So what they call like an HRTF, which is the head-related transfer function. So that means like if I'm sitting here, it's going to sound a little bit different if you're to the right of me versus in front of me versus behind me, right? And there's all those things that are different based on the sound source's location in relation to you.
I would think even the way the brain works, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Just to ask you straight up, because they say the right side of the mind is stronger than the left or something like that, or the way we compute on each side is different. So is that also the same with ears as well? Are we stronger like in one side than and this is a weird question I'm just asking for myself. Maybe you had the answer.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily stronger or weaker, but it is going to be different based on potentially your ears.
Okay.
So one of the things that you consider with these head-related transfer functions, right, is what your the shape of your ears are. If you have somebody who has big ears like Alfred E. Newman that are sticking out,
right.
Like a
shout out to Alfred.
Dish, then that person's honestly probably going to be able to hear better if they're trying to hear something that's in front of them.
Yeah.
They might not be able to hear something as well as that's coming from behind them though.
Right.
Right. So if one of your ears has a different shape than the other, you may hear better from your left side or your right side, right? I mean,
that's interesting. I never even thought of the shape of the ear. Speaking of the shape of the ear, bro, since you work for Meta, this is personal. So I could never put in those headphones that everybody wears, those the wireless ones. My ears just won't fit in my ears. They won't stick in there, and they have never figured out a way to fix that. And if they do, I bet you there's more of people like myself that can't put these little, like everybody's talking about all these ear pods and stuff like that. Like I could never wear them. I mean, back in the 90s, I could never wear them. I thought it was just I was doing them wrong for years. Just my ears just don't accept that shape.
No, I mean, my dad's very similar. It's like, he had somebody who kept being like, oh, these don't sound good and stuff. And then I looked inside of his ears and I was like, you have a weird shaped ear.
Only my son would know that.
Yeah. So
That's
no, but I mean, it's a real big problem for in-ear things, and that's something that and you got to imagine, right? If your ears are shaped that much different than my ears, then what it actually does when it gets into your ear canal is going to be different for you than it's going to be for me, right? So if you have a big, really big ear canal and I have a really small one, it's going to sound different.
I got you.
And so that actually doesn't end up becoming as big of a deal as the actual ear shape. I mean, it's an issue for some reason, but in terms of the things that we're trying to get to, we kind of worry more about what it's like when it's about to go into the ear. What does it sound like?
So how are you guys getting the sound of people's ears? Because I think when you have glasses, I mean, it's not going to come with headphones, right? So is this going to be, and this is maybe more information than you're able to give, but is it going to be like embedded somehow into, I don't know, like what, like are we thinking more like Neuralink type stuff? Or
that'd be cool, obviously. but I mean, as of right now, it's definitely up in the air. I think everybody's trying to figure that out. I mean, some of the stuff that's on the market right now, for example, Meta does have the Ray-Ban Stories, which are glasses, and they have speakers in the frame. And that idea is essentially they can direct the speakers so that it's pointed at your ear. So it's in the frame of the glasses, and they direct it using some trickery, right, to make it so that it goes into your ear and doesn't go anywhere else. Because the thing with that too is privacy, and you don't want to be having a phone call and having the person next to you hearing it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I just think so many problems because there's so much space. Right there.
And you also, I mean, with sound in general, size comes into play a lot, because with sound waves, if you want to make a low frequency, you need to move a lot of air. It's just kind of the way it is. Like high frequencies, you can have a small tweeter, that's an inch wide, it's an inch in diameter, and it can make a lot of sound. But you can't have a subwoofer that's that small and actually expect somebody to hear it. So size is sort of always the thing you're fighting against. And when you're talking about like a glasses form factor, how do you get a big subwoofer in there? So there's a lot of kind of tricks that they're trying to come up with to get around that. But I mean, what you're saying is it's a really good point, because ultimately, people don't want to have to be walking around with headphones on their ears in a day-to-day environment because you want it to be natural.
Yeah, everything's getting smaller. Everything's it's just a lot of things out there. So your whole story is about always doing things creating things that don't exist, and doing it for the betterment of the world. I believe I think there's a sense of I'm making the world a better place by doing it like this, or creating something that hasn't created. We're creating something better for the world. What do you think that what you're doing now? How does that fit into that idea of you still living life that way? Like, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but like, how does it still fit into that plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's certainly what, stuff I'm working on. It's certainly not, I mean, it is for the betterment of society, right? But it's not. A lot of people would disagree. A lot of people would be like,
Sure.
That's not betterment of society. That's just making it worse, But, pushing technology to new areas, it excites me.
It's an advance.
Yeah, it's an advance. It's not solving world hunger, but
Sure.
it's what I like, and I try to contribute in that way, right? But what our kind of vision is in the lab is really, and one thing I didn't really realize before I got to Meta, I mean, obviously a lot of people see Meta, negatively, right? There's a lot of negative connotations, right, with Facebook and whatever else, and there's certainly the bad sides of it, right? There's the bad side effects for sure. But the thing that I kind of found when I got there was that the company really is about the overreaching concept is like connecting people, in communities,
Yeah.
And so whenever they initially bought Oculus, I was like, why are they buying a game, headset, right? And I didn't make any sense to me. And then, but really, ultimately, it's all about this kind of vision of, future connectivity and bringing people together from that wouldn't normally be able to be together, in ways that you wouldn't normally be able to. So the concept of being able to, the three of us being here and having somebody that's, across the world really seem like they're in front of you, is the ultimate vision of what we're trying to do in our lab. And I'll tell you what, I mean, when I've tried some of the, the advanced demos where you see this photorealistic head of somebody in front of you and it looks like them, there's a big difference between, having a call with somebody on a phone where you see them on a computer versus having it really seem like them. I mean, and it's hard to describe until you do it, but it's like...
This man has seen some things. This man has seen some things, man. That just like, you're going to just experience it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
It's one of those things.
And there's some demos you can see, on YouTube and stuff that we've released where you can see what it looks like generally, and that it's impressive even there. But when you see it in person, it really gives you a different sense that you're really talking to somebody as opposed to talking to a representation of them.
Josh, you just had some great experience with some technology as well.
I just got the Bose headphones that noise cancel. And I bought myself those for Christmas, and I had to show them to Corey because it changed my whole perspective. These headphones are not worthy. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But also, I was talking about there's another technology that because that you're working with now that you kind of experienced about how technology can kind of push us forward. With printing. Yeah, with printing. Yeah. So are you talking about the 12-color system? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, talking about that as well as the AI, as well as that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
all of that. You're a real tech guy as well, and your technology has also helped advance you to a point, and I think in business as well, where it's becoming more efficient with sometimes like less. I would say manpower, but not really. But like less hands in the kitchen.
Yeah. So I posted a newsletter yesterday that I basically I created an outline and I had all my bullet points kind of, and I ran them through through the
Chat
chatbot.
GPT.
Yeah, and it basically and I had to do 2 or 3 versions for some of them. Like if it didn't quite hit the way that I wanted it to sound, and then I basically took that apart and then reconstructed it from there, and it turned out to be a pretty captivating article that I ended up being very proud of. But I put the information in there, but the AI was able to generate a lot more information than what I had originally put in. So like I would talk about something and then it would, I mentioned 3 venues and it pulled in, information about them. One of them being that they started in 2013. I didn't put that information in there. And so I put in I just put
remarkable.
A base of stuff in there, and then it acts as a, and I gave it the prompt, can you help me write this thing? This is what I want to do. And then I put it in. So working with AI and then, and that aspect of, I know Microsoft is trying to make a move to buy in to that kind of software. But I'm sure everyone's kind of
everybody. I think everybody has a foot in that pot right there. I don't know if it's the wrong phrase to use, but foot in the pot.
I like it.
I think you get it when I say it though, right? Yeah, everybody has a foot in that pot. God damn.
We'll see what the chatbot says about that.
Got some cannibal results.
Hey,
but that didn't.
Yeah.
Did you know that this phrase was made in Pittsburgh by Corey Osai? Then it's just going to learn that. It's going to start putting it in everything.
You heard that here first on Thoughtful Discussion with Josh Schneider. Just to make sure they have the information, Josh, your name pops up as well. Man, technology is beautiful.
Yeah, no, but I think right now with the Mid Journey and Dolly and Chat GPT. I feel like we've been talking about AI for a while, but I feel like those two
becoming
things,
accessible.
Yeah, it's accessible, and it's something. It's something that normal people can access, but they also can experience more, right? If you have an AI like routing your planes, great, cool, right? But when this person's able to put something like that in and really have it affect their lives and be able to see it, is when it really. I think it's gonna be. It's in the zeitgeist now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's there. It's here.
And with like Chat GPT, I've a few people at work have been talking about it where you can. It not only does it create conversational stuff like that, but it can actually create programming.
Yeah,
That's kind of
this code.
That's kind of the scary part because they're asking the people are asking this to like there's coders and also hackers that are asking it to hack things or how would I hack this, and it's giving them, it's not just giving them the information, it's showing them like a whole new way of navigating this thing, and it's which it can be a little dangerous. But also I feel like can also be a solution to a lot of problems that we have, and I feel like there's always 2 sides of the coin. So
I was trying to write that newsletter for months, and I kind of knew where I wanted to go with it, but
that's what it brings some beauty into it.
So having something where if I were to, not to say that if I did hire people to help me with it, that wouldn't have a monetary value, but being able to do that on my own and work with something that I put input in, and then it gave me an output, and then I was able to change that. It doesn't replace. It can never be more creative than we can be. I think that the people that are concerned that it's going to take over that sort of creativity, it's a tool. It's not. It's not. You have to know how to get from A to B in order to use it in the process. It's never going to do A to B on its own completely. Like you have to be a part of the process, right?
I would say though, you might still have to be part of the process.
You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know what the end result looks like in order to use it and know you can't just pass it off as your own work without ever you can't just let it do all the work.
You're giving it the destination, right? So,
but sometimes I've seen some stuff that's scary good. So, for example, back to Monster Jam, right?
Yeah.
So we this, we usually have a theme for our group, right? And so this year I decided to do aquatic themed. And so I had my buddy Jeff, who has like a Mid-Journey account. I asked him to put in, monster truck sea battle, right? Just like 4 words. And it came back with, a shark monster truck combination underwater with giant wheels spinning stuff up. I mean, it looked like it could be on a movie poster,
Crazy.
So like,
oh goodness.
I mean, it sometimes you don't have to put in much to have it be amazing, but it's going to raise the bar though.
It does, but that might create something that a creative painter like Corey or myself, and you're like, I want something like this, but I want it in your style,
right?
And then you're going to take that and go, all right, cool, I can make something like that.
Absolutely, because it doesn't think like a human,
right?
You know what I mean? So
so it's going to look AI based,
right?
And but it can give you, if you didn't know what you wanted to do and you put in these keywords and then it gave you something, you're like, okay, cool, I can paint that. And you can use it as a tool, or you could use it as a finished product if you want to. But it's going to be kind of that raw.
This is why I feel like we'll always have an up on it, because good artists borrow, great artists steal. So if I'm seeing better, I'm gonna do better because I have better reference now. You know what I mean? So it can never one up us in that fashion.
Right.
It
can only create as much as it can comprehend.
Right.
And where we can go past, that's what our creative abilities enable us to do, is go past that.
Absolutely.
You know what
and
I mean?
when we talked about, the name Move 78, where that came from was the game Go and AlphaGo, the whole if you guys haven't watched the documentary AlphaGo, go on YouTube and watch it.
Good.
Oh, it's absolutely phenomenal. And they created a machine to play the top Go player. His name is Lee Sedol. And the thing that this machine did for Lee Sedol and the rest of the Go community, is a game you guys got to research. I'm not going to give the story again. Plus, you can go back on Thoughtful Discussions. Yeah. We talk about it with the whole documentary. It was absolutely phenomenal, and how I got the name Move 78. But the whole thing that I seen from it, where everybody was scared that this machine was going to be one of the top minds in the world, as well as being at Go. But what it did for this man, even though the machine beat him, but he still beat the machine as well. Spoiler alert. But the thing that I learned from it was, because this machine didn't move like a human, it showed him another way to play the game, which made him even better, and also gave him more opportunity to actually expand his knowledge. So what it did was, it pushed his mind to the limit and beyond, and now they have a whole different way. It changed the way that people play the game all across the world by watching this machine play and getting an understanding for it. So it
goes both ways.
It goes both ways.
Just like it's learning from us, right? Yeah. I think we will be able to learn from
it as well, right? And it's an arms race, right? As and I'm gonna use these phrases, and it's gonna sound scary, but as a predator gets stronger, so does the prey. As the prey gets stronger, so does the predator. Or you can look at it as trees. As trees are growing, the reason trees are growing higher and higher is because they're fighting for the sunlight. So as one thing pushes up, another thing will push up with it. I think it's beautiful. We can keep a certain balance. I do think there needs to be rules, laws, and regulations on certain things, but that's on everything, and we'll figure it out. We're human, but we're resilient. That's what the fuck that's what we do. Excuse my language. That's what we do. We figure it out. So
no, it's true, and I think there's a lot of there's a lot of people that are push back on stuff like that. It's good to have that pushback.
Absolutely, it's necessary,
because you need that to think. You need to think about it. You can't just do some of this stuff and they're have, like you're saying, have no rules, have no laws, have no regulations, and how that ultimately plays out is that's the interesting part. But
it is.
and I mean these kind of right arguments have been going on for years and years, right?
Oh yeah.
From digital cameras, right, and it's a big thing in DJing too. Whether or not you use the sync button, it's like big controversy. Some people are like, oh, you got to use vinyl and you got to match it by hand, and some people are like, no, use digital and do it automatically. I'm more in that camp personally, but but both are both have their
I mean, they're talking about it in even directors, right? You should work with film. Oh, the digital camera, digital film is cheating and stuff like that.
Right.
It's always going to be, there's always going to be a better method, and there's always going to be a method that was preferred beforehand that people don't want to let go of.
Right. The artists originally didn't like photography.
Oh, absolutely. That was a thing. I actually seen something like a little documentary or a little clip about that made me laugh because I don't even think about that.
Right.
But imagine being that type of artist where photography comes into play. I'm doing portraits. What do you mean you can just
take a picture?
Oh, you're cheating. This is
Get that 10 out of here.
That's hilarious. But that's what I'm talking about. And it's actually necessary. It's necessary for the process. So I think this has been beautiful though.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So on a lighter note,
okay.
You have I don't know if it's a satirical, comedic side of you as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
There's so how long have you been doing Keebs in the background? And what is it? If
you got to tell me what Keebs in the background is.
Yeah, so, okay, well, I'll just, let's see, how long have I been doing it? Probably, I don't know, 15 years maybe, something like that. But
so it's a long-running joke.
Yeah, so basically it started out actually at the thing you were talking about before at the Bloomfield Bridge Tavern.
Okay.
We used to have a drum and bass night there every Wednesday. And there was this one girl she would bring her digital camera, this is before cell phones were taking good enough pictures,
It should have been film. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
all right,
right,
I'm sorry. I got you.
But so she would show up with her digital camera and she would take pictures of the night, and she would, take tons of pictures, right? And she would post them all every week. And I eventually, I would see them and she would tag me in them and stuff, and I'd be like, oh God, I look stupid in the background there. I'm sitting there, with my tongue out and slouching, or something, and just not a flattering picture, and setting up some cables or whatever. And so then when she started coming back and I would see her with her camera, I'd be like, rather than just doing like that, I just notice that she's there, and I would just make some weird face at her, and so I just kept being in her pictures, making these funny faces.
No.
And so she then started. She started a Facebook page of me, and she called it Keebs in the background because I was always in the background of her photos, across the room, looking at her camera.
Now you could spot a camera from 100 feet away. You're looking for it now.
Yeah, so it basically started with that, and then it just kind of took off from there. So that now, anytime I see somebody taking a photo, I just try and jump in it real quick, and then I jump out of it, and then. And
there's thousands.
Yeah.
Right.
How many memes is out there with you in it?
Wait, didn't you do one where it was Tinder? You were in Tinder photos?
I did that.
God.
I made my. Well, so yeah, I made my Tinder profile pictures of me photobombing people, and then actually. I'm so I was at
Stop right there. All right. Okay. You're the GOAT, my guy. You're the GOAT. Just put that out there. This has probably been my favorite one. But no, you just keep going. Keep going. I'm sorry. I stopped you.
Well, so she was so okay, so I was at a beer fest and I saw two people making out. And I photobombed them. I then got the picture back and then had that on my Tinder profile. And a girl that knew the people making out in the photo matched with me. I met just because she knew them. And before I even met her, she then ran up on stage one time when I was DJing to try and photobomb me while I was DJing.
Oh, she's a keeper.
Yeah.
She's a keeper. That's.
I didn't. We were just friends, but
I got you.
Yeah, there's hundreds of. Well, I have hundreds of the photos. The thing is, getting them back is
the issue.
Easy. Yeah. So I'm probably in thousands and thousands, but it's just how many I actually have back is probably 400 or 500, I would say.
You said thousands and thousands. Like, you didn't just say 1,000. You said thousands and thousands of them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. So this has been, that's how you're going to be remembered. You know that, right? So,
I always give a hashtag on my Instagram, world's best photo bomber. And nobody, I don't see any other competing tags.
Yeah.
So I think that means I got it.
You got it. I'm going to look that up, actually, that tag right there. That just sounds amazing.
One time, the only thing, the closest I've seen to competition was somebody who was like clearly friends with a photographer in Hollywood. And this guy would go around and like the photographer take a picture and this person would jump in the background of it. But that's against my rules.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion,
that's cheating.
Yeah, it's cheating, right? Yeah. Anybody can do
That's like film and digital. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Let's bring it back to that. I'm sorry.
That's like AI.
Yeah,
it's like AI.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You know what I mean? Like you're setting it up. That's not like, what I find fun about it is when somebody takes a photo and then 2 weeks later they're looking at the photo and they're like,
say, who the heck is this guy?
This guy. And then they like post it. And then somebody I know is like, tags me in it. And they're like, got another one. And then I get it back.
Oh, that's a great life journey.
Yeah.
That's a great life journey, man.
I've met a decent amount of friends and definitely some girls that way, It's
real rock star out here, my guy. You're a real rock star. I don't know if y'all catching this. This is some gems right here, man. Absolutely amazing. Todd, this has been, I think this is one of my favorites. This is probably my favorite sit-down.
Best podcast ever, I would say.
Yeah, this is the best. This has been one of my favorite podcasts. I mean, you're like the Forrest Gump of the tech world. I mean, you've been through it all, my guy. Like, there's a lot. I mean, you were in Miami during the 90s. Do you guys know how big do you know what was going? Look at a documentary. I think Ed Reed was still there. Was Ed Reed there? Or Warren Sapp? Might have been Warren Sapp. You didn't even watch football. Yeah. This is crazy. Guys, go look up a You documentary in the 90s, and I'm going to tell you, this is where this guy was at, going to college that time.
Yeah, some of those, I know there was, some stuff that came up as far as shady stuff that was going on with the players back then. And
there's always shady stuff in Miami. That's just part of Miami, isn't it?
There was a rapper that was around campus back then, and he had a bumper sticker that he had made for one of his songs. That
Uncle Luke.
No.
Trick Daddy.
No. But,
okay.
But his song's name was "Miami's a Sunny Place for Shady People."
Oh God.
And it was just like it just resonates. You know what I mean?
That's a tattoo. That's a T-shirt. There's probably people with that tattooed on them. Yeah. Probably T-shirt company as well that says that. They sell that at the airport in Miami. If not so, you're welcome. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm buying that T-shirt. But yeah, man, Todd, this has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think, I think this is that time where we should probably, say if there was, if you could speak to yourself, right, at the beginning of this journey, when you were at Shinley High School, and you're about to go on this whole journey, if there was something, if you were sitting across from that younger person of yourself, what would you say to that person? What type of advice would you give that person?
I think I would just say, have fun.
There you go.
I mean, I think most of the things that I learned along the way were, done through experience. So I'm kind of when I go to see a movie, I don't like to know anything about it beforehand.
Same.
You know what I mean? Like I like to go in blind and do it. So I don't think I'd want to give any spoilers.
Yeah.
And influencing myself would be tough back then. So I think I'd just say, just enjoy life and experience it.
present.
That's absolutely phenomenal. I think that's a gem in itself. You're a way better man than me. I would have gave myself the lottery of the of like the biggest. I would have gave myself some lottery ticket. Hey, look, this is the date. You play this. You're good to go. If I was able to go back in time, it'd have been a whole different story right there. It'd have been a whole different answer you would have got from me. But no, I think that's beautiful in itself though. Right there, it's like no, I think you're equipped with enough knowledge to navigate any trial or tribulation that comes up, and I think you'll gain a lot from it, and you're on the right path, kid. That's what I heard. Yeah. You know what I mean, with the less words, but that's what I heard. Like that's really good. That's really good, actually.
If people want to follow you in your journey, where can they? Website, social media, any stuff where.
Yeah, I mean, so the music night me and my buddy Jeff do is called Laser Crunk. So you can follow Laser Crunk, or just follow my Instagram, Todd Keebs. I don't have one from my music or whatever else. It's just kind of.
It's all in there.
It's all there. So just follow me. Friendly.
I got you.
Approachable.
Do not take a picture next to him if you don't.
Or Keebs. Yeah, Keebs in the background.
It's another Instagram, right? Or Facebook?
Instagram
please,
and Facebook. But
please follow that.
Yeah.
Please. And
it brings joy every time.
Yeah.
It's always like, whenever sometimes you post something, gets a certain amount of likes. It's like, if I post a good photo bomb, it's always gonna hit.
It's always there. It's always there. Yeah, man. And once again, this is another episode of Thoughtful Discussion. My name is Corey Ochai, also Move78. You can find me at MUVE_78. We are recording this podcast at the 1028 Podcast Studio. So if you guys like what you hear, if you guys are interested in recording a podcast, audio or video or both, please hit us up, and that's at 1028 Podcast Studio, and that's on Facebook as well as Instagram. Book a tour, man, and there should be the website should be coming out by the time this podcast is out. So www, again, 1028 Podcast Studio. Hey, we'll make it happen. We can help you tell your story to the world.
Yeah, and thank you guys for having me here.
Thanks for coming on.
It was fun.
Yeah, and we always got one more on here, man.
Yeah,
the one, the only. You know what I mean? The print god in Pittsburgh. That's what I call him. I know that's a little strong on words, but you know what it is. You know what it is.
Thank you for listening. My name is Josh Snyder, and this is Thoughtful Discussions. And couldn't do it here without my co-host, Corey Ochai. So thank you so much for being here in your studio.
My guy.
And Todd, thank you for being on. It's always a pleasure. I'm excited for Monster Jam coming up, and I'm not worried about that being dated because even people are listening 5 years from now. Hopefully, we're still out there and doing it. So
I like the way you think, Josh. That's real. That's real.
As always. Appreciate everyone that is listening, everyone that has supported me and everything that I've been doing. Sometimes I wake up and I can't believe it, and I think a big reason that I get to do what I do is because of all of these people. Just little bits and pieces that I saw Todd had an order come in. It was either yesterday or this morning, and Corey's always printing with me, and they're always they tell their friends, and then it's a snowball. But in Pittsburgh, that's something I appreciate very much about it. You do good hard work, and people take notice, and so always appreciate that. So if you want to check out our print shop, it's PGHPrintShip.com. We print just about everything. And the podcast, you can check us out, Thoughtful Discussions, on Instagram and Facebook. And then my personal Instagram is probably the best way to reach me personally, and that's Josh Snyder 86, and that's Snyder with an I. But yeah, everything else, thank you. We love doing what we're doing.
Absolutely, man.
Wouldn't be able to do it without all the support.
Yeah, so hey, guys, go out there, do something beautiful. The world's counting on you. Don't forget, this world's a blank canvas, so it's up to each and every one of us to grab our paint brushes and to go and help paint this masterpiece together. What you got for him, Todd?
Prompts to AI.
Oh, that's what. You can do that as well. Do that well. Hey, man, it ain't all bad. I mean, they can help us do things, guys. All right, guys. All right, and we're out. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bang.